Okay, my friends, welcome back to the next episode, Masechet Sanhedrin. First of all, I'm sorry for our late start, a number of technical challenges and difficulties, but here we are. And today's Gemara is really unusual. It's actually not such a hard Gemara to understand. What is the point of the Gemara? That's really hard to understand. So, I'm pretty sure I figured out the pshat. The meaning of the Gemara is pretty straightforward. I even think I understand what the Gemara is trying to tell us. But that's like a leap. That's like a leap of, I don't know. Hopefully I'm on the right path, and hopefully this is the true kavanah, this is the true intention of the Holy Gemara. Okay, my friends. Today is going to be like a page turner. We're starting off on Daf Tzadik Daled, Amud Beis, which is Masechet Sanhedrin, the 11th chapter, Perek Chelek, a very famous chapter. And we're going to turn from page 94, side B. We're going to end up on 95, side A. So let me give you a little bit of a refresher, like a little bit of a backgrounder. Because last week we missed. So we have to go back to 2 weeks ago. And maybe some of you are joining us for the first time. By the way, for those of you who are joining us, please be so kind as to subscribe to youtube.com/Rabbi Mendel Kaplan and let us share as widely as we can so we can get Hashem's holy Torah all over the place. So this Gemara is about King Hezekiah Chizkiyahu HaMelech, and it's about Sennacherib, and it's about one of the most remarkable events ever in Jewish history. This event is actually, in many ways, unparalleled. It happened on the first night of Pesach. The nevuah, the prophecies that surround this event are some of the most important prophecies because they speak directly to the heart of the coming of Mashiach. In fact, on the last day of Pesach, when we focus, the theme of the last day of Pesach is not the past but rather the future. It is these verses that comprise the actual Haftorah. In fact, where today's Gemara ends, the Haftorah on the last day of Pesach begins. Oda Yom Benov. And Chizkiyahu was a man who probably, of everybody in Jewish history, the person who came closest to actually being Mashiach was Chizkiyahu HaMelech. And this was like this is at a time where 80% of the Jewish people disappear. 10 of 12 tribes disappear. We never heard from them again. Till today, we haven't heard from them again today. There are little pockets of Jews from the different tribes who returned. But en masse, they seem to have melted into the nation of worlds, the world of nations, or the collection of different peoples. I have to tell you that for many, many centuries, even millennia, Torah Jews believed that there was a place on planet Earth where 10 tribes were waiting, river, Sambacha. I mean, the problem with that is that today the whole Earth has been explored. And we know every inch of planet Earth. You don't have to work for CSIS or the CIA to be able to see a picture of every inch of planet Earth. So where would you hide 100 million people?
Disguise, no?
Huh?
It's disguise, no?
They're disguised as trees? Underground? That doesn't really say that. It doesn't say that there's 100 million people living underground somewhere. It says they're behind the river. Right, so, but so, that sounds like the city of Atlantis. Like, so where is this place? So what does it mean? I don't know. I don't know what it means. We once upon a time could have assumed it meant that there was a distant place where nobody had come to yet, and people are waiting. But the only part of planet Earth that is somewhat still unexplored is the great depths of the ocean. We haven't explored every inch of that there. If there's 100 million people living under sea, that's called a miracle. So are they extant in some miraculous way? I don't know. Does it mean that they will come back? They have assumed the form of other nations and that they're assimilated and they will come back to the Jewish people when Mashiach comes? Maybe. I don't know. I don't claim to know. We don't know. It's a mystery. But in the midst of all this, where the entire north of Israel is sacked and the cities are razed and its population is expelled and exiled, the perpetrator of these terrible crimes against the Jewish people now has his sights set on Yerushalayim. And he wants to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. And it doesn't look good. Chizkiyahu HaMelech is deathly ill. The city of Yerushalayim is ill-equipped to withstand this kind of assault. Over 180,000 troops. Yerushalayim was a very small municipality at the time. And there does not seem to be any kind of natural way for the Jewish people living in the south of Israel to survive the onslaught. What happens is one of the greatest miracles of all time. An army of 180,000 troops is defeated in one night. We talked a lot about this in previous episodes. Like, what does it mean? Was there some kind of nuclear event? Do we not even have any understanding of it? We don't know what exactly it was, but like in one night, the most powerful man in the world is reduced to rubble, and there are 10 survivors. 10 survivors. Chillingly, amongst them is Nebuchadnezzar, the man who eventually destroys the Beis HaMikdash. And it was almost the end of human history as we know it. So if you put it in this light, wouldn't it be important, wouldn't it be meaningful for us to kind of examine what happened during this time? Because whatever they did seemed to have worked. So we would do well to follow suit. I mean, like, they merited this unbelievable miracle. What did they do to merit the miracle? So we know there was a tremendous amount of Torah study that we learned about a few episodes ago. But I think that tonight's class actually conveys the secret to us. There's an extremely powerful lesson being conveyed. But on the surface, it doesn't seem to make any sense whatsoever. No. Why did I name today's class Kingdom of Heaven? Because I was Googling different movies and books and popular culture that spoke about Yerushalayim being marched against, and one of them is Kingdom of Heaven. It was great graphics, so I advertised the class as Kingdom of Heaven. But actually, the title, as you can see, works out. How this is really a Kingdom of Heaven. This is what happens in Yerushalayim on that Seder night is heavenly. It's not part of an earthly reality. There is no logical, reasonable way to explain how the Jewish people were saved. It was like we were here on planet Earth, but what happened is entirely ethereal. And today we're going to learn about what happened the day before. The day before Sennacherib lays siege to Yerushalayim, what happened? So the Gemara says like this. Amar Rav Huna. Rav Huna taught, and this is based on a careful analysis of the verses of the prophecies of Yeshayahu HaNavi in the 10th chapter of Isaiah's prophecies. And we're talking about verses 28 to 32. So Rav Huna says, Eser masaot nasa oto rasha ba'oto yom. This wicked, evil man, Sennacherib, or as they call him in the secular world, in academia, Sennacherib, this man marched 10 times in one day. 180,000 troops. Just to muster the troops. Just to get everybody into formation. To be able to move troops at that speed so often in a single day is actually almost inexplicable. It doesn't make any sense. What it tells you is that this had to have been the most agile, fit fighting force maybe the world has ever seen. Hitler, Yamach Shmoy's Blitzkrieg, has nothing on this. How do you move 180 people? Yeah, how do you move 100 people? 180,000? It's funny when you deal with scheduling events, and if you have to move people, get them onto buses, off buses. There's actually there's like an equation that you have to make. How long it takes each person to get on the bus and off the bus. You're talking about 80 people, the actuaries have it figured out. They can tell you how long it's going to take you to load the buses and unload the buses. And if you have a trip and you have people coming and going, it's really important to know how long this is going to take, because you got to schedule right. It doesn't take 5 minutes. Each person takes a minute and a half. Just got to get on, find a seat. You know what it means for an army to pull up, to break camp, to pull up and go to the next place, to break camp? It is perhaps the most remarkable way to describe an army's ability to fight is in describing how many times it can move and settle in a single day. I don't even know how this is humanly possible. Incidentally, these moves were not just, they weren't on a picnic. They were actually attacking towns and conquering towns. To take 10 towns in a single day? Did they have to eat something at some point also? How does this happen? What is the weakness, the Achilles heel, if you will, of a large fighting force? The answer is that large fighting forces lack agility. They're lumbering. They move slowly. How do guerrillas succeed in guerrilla attacks on a large force? Because they can move very quickly. They have these small, little attack groups. So these what you would call commandos or special forces, the virtue of special forces, they can move at great speed. And they can do these incursions, attack, withdraw, and then come back. This was an enormous fighting force. We actually have numbers. We know the numbers. So they moved 10 times in a single day. Rav Huna is teaching us something. He says, if you look at the verses, that's what you're going to see. On that day, and this is when they came to capture Yerushalayim, they had time to march 10 times, just arriving at Yerushalayim. We also are going to ask the question, why was he in such a rush? Why did he push his army? First of all, that his army was able to do this is absolutely mind-blowing. But why did Sennacherib push his men to move with such haste? We're going to learn that Sennacherib was actually starstruck. And he knew that he had to get to Yerushalayim at a certain day. And there was a ways to go. He had towns to mop up. You can't go and attack the capital city and leave other cities intact, because then you're opening yourself up to an attack from the rear flank. So he has to neutralize any possible attempts to attack from the rear flank. He has to neutralize all that enemy territory. He has to clear all the enemy territory so that when he comes and he lays siege on Yerushalayim, he's safe from behind. Sennacherib doesn't really have a choice. So he's mopping up behind, conquering the entire area around, and only then can he set his sights in Yerushalayim, and then he's going to come, he has everything planned out. He destroys the Beis HaMikdash, and Judea Kapta, that's it, the Jewish people are finished. He has it all planned out. And Rav Huna says 10 times on that day. How do we know this? I mean, how do you know? Rav Huna is living many, many centuries after this happened. So Rav Huna says Shenemar because the prophet Isaiah actually speaks about it in the pasuk. It says Ba El Ayis. They came to the city of Ayis. I'm actually going to read this to you from the English translation of the Steinsaltz edition of the book of Isaiah, and I'll tell you why. Because I want to be able to make some sense out of it. So I'm just reading to you from here. Before Sennacherib sent his army to Jerusalem, he first had to subdue the surrounding cities, as I just said. Okay. So the prophet describes the towns north of Jerusalem taken easily by the Assyrian king. He came to Ayat, he passed through Migron. At Michmas, he deposits his baggage. I guess that's spoils. They passed over the pass, and this is the idea of, the pasuk says, Avru Ma'abara. Alternatively, the name Ma'abara is the name of a place. And Avru is also the name of a place. We'll see in the Gemara later. And then they went to Geva, which is south of Michmas. Geva is Mullen. It's a lodging place. Lanu, they stayed. And then Ramah, Chorda Harama. Ramah trembled before them. And Givat Shaul Nasa. The people of Givat Shaul escaped, ran away. So they captured those cities, he captured those municipalities without even firing an arrow, without shooting an arrow. The next pasuk says, Tzahali koilech, raise your voice, Bas Galim, daughter of Galim. Who is daughter of Galim? So actually, daughter of Galim, in the literal way, he says over here, Givat Shaul, Galim is, some contend that Galim is located at Kirbet Kachul, near present-day Pisgah Ze'ev. So we're talking about the areas north of Yerushalayim, outside Yerushalayim. And again, we're just reading this. Raise your voice, Bas Galim. Hakshivi Laisha, listen, Laisha. Ania Anatot, poor Anatot. In other words, the inhabitants of all these places simply flee in terror. No, there's nobody putting up a fight. There is this impossible to stop, massive attack army that nobody is capable of standing in its way. And so they're conquering and taking township after township, city after city. Nodida Madmena, they wander. Madmena wandered. And here once again, we're talking about the place's name which is being associated with misfortune. Yoshve Hagevim Heizu. The inhabitants of Gevim gather their flocks and they flee. We're not sure exactly where these places are. And even today, the king of Assyria will come and stand at Nov, having conquered all these cities. That's the verse. That's how it reads. Now, by the way, in the Steinsaltz edition here, they identify all these places. They say Ayat is possibly another place for the eye. Migron is exact location uncertain. Michmas is near the present-day Arab town of Muchmas. It's at the end of the Judean desert, northeast of Jerusalem. Ramah is probably identified with the city of Aram, north of Yerushalayim, or the modern-day city of Ramallah. Givat Shaul today is the Jerusalem neighbor of Shuafat. And there's actually a neighbor in Yerushalayim called Givat Shaul. So we go through a whole bunch of these places. The Gemara says, Rav Huna says, from this we can see, Shenemar bo alayas, avar b'migroin, lemichbash yafkid kelov, he deposits his spoils or luggage over there. Avru ma'abra gva molin lano, Charada Chorma is terrified. Give us Shaul Nasa, the people of Givat Shaul flee. Tzali Koiler Bazgalim, raise your voice Bazgalim. Akshiva Laisha, listen people of Laisha. Ania Nasas, poor Nasas. Nodada Midamna, Yeshva Hagevim Eizu, and we're hearing about all these places simply packing up and disappearing. Everybody flees. And they're sounding the warning. They're like telling, each town is telling the next town, they're coming. Now the pasuk Oidayim B'Noiv is actually in parentheses, and it's not considered to be part of this Gemara, because that's already the next day. That's not happening here. As Rashi says, V'loi kachoshev Oidayim B'Noiv, we don't include Oidayim B'Noiv Lamed, Dahu Lav Masa, that's not a march. That's not a journey. Ela Kedamrinu L'Kamon, rather it says, we're going to say in the next Gemara, Oisya Hayoim Nishtayer Me'oina Shel Noiv. It was on that day that his last place to go was to come to the area of Nov, which is like the area of Mount Scopus or something. So the Gemara says, Rav Huna, you maintain that he did 10 marches. I'm not sure about that, because when we count up the different places, it turns out to be Hani Tuvahavyon. That's a little bit too many. As Rashi says, the Yud Beis Ika. We're not talking about 10 locations, we're actually mentioning 12 locations. How do we have 12 locations? So very simple. Ayat is one location. Migron is another location. Michmash is a third location. Ma'abra is a fourth location. Geva is a fifth location. Roma is a sixth. Givat Shaul is a seventh. Bat Galim is an eighth. Laisha is a ninth. Anatot is a 10th. And then we have Midamna 11 and gave him 12. So you have 12 locations, not 10 locations. I have to tell you, I'm learning this Gemara and I'm getting a headache, because okay, fine. So Rav Huna said, they're a fantastic army. They marched 10 times in a day. And the Gemara says, no, I caught you. They marched 12 times. Okay, so even more fantastic army. Okay, obviously Rav Huna didn't make a mistake. Rav Huna says 10 times, and we're hearing 12 times, so there's something to be learned. But obviously it's like a mystery to me. I don't get what's going on over here. It's like we're obsessing over these little details that seem to make no difference of anything. You want to say it was a massive fighting force. You want to describe that it was a big miracle. A powerful army that was so agile that was able to move from place to place to place in lightning speed in the course of a day. Okay, great. So there's 12 locations. Big deal. So the Gemara says, no. Rav Huna said 10 is 10. The Gemara answers that Tzahali, Koilech, Bazgalim, the words, raise your voice, Bazgalim, this is Navi Hu Amar, Navi Hu Dika Amar Lo. This is the Navi speaking. This is not the people who are ringing the alarms and the bells and saying, you better move over because the redcoats are coming. This is not the Paul Revere and everybody empties out because we're afraid the enemy's coming. No. This is the Navi speaking. The Navi says, Tzali Koilech, raise your voice, Bazgalim. So the Gemara says, who in heaven is the Navi talking to? Who is Bazgalim? By the way, a gal means like a wave, a tidal wave. So the Gemara says like this. The Ka'omar, Navi hu the Ka'omar lo, the Navi is saying this, Knesset Yisrael. The Navi is speaking to the congregation of Israel. And the Navi is saying the following. Tzahali kolech bat galim. Raise your voice jubilantly. Tzahala v'samecha. Tzahala is a joyous sound. Raise your voice, daughter of Galim. What's this voice raising, daughter of Galim? I want to take you to Rashi for a second. Rashi says, Kra de Tzahali Kolach Bat Galim, the verse in Isaiah's prophecies that says, raise your voice, daughter of Galim. Hakshivi Laisha, listen, Laisha. Dichshivna Bei Milcha Bei Galim Laisha Atonis. Hanhu Lav Chashivnu Ninu. These are not places that should be part of Chushban and Ninu. The Navi Hudika Amar Lahu Yisrael. This part is the Navi speaking to Yisrael. And what is the Navi saying? The Navi is saying, raise your voice, Bito Shel Avraham Yitzchak v'Yakov. Who are the waves? The waves are Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Bat Galim, daughter of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is the nation of Israel, the proverbial descendants of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Why are they called waves? A funny way to call your ancestors. So the Gemara says they're called waves because sha'asu mitzvah kigale hayam. They did mitzvot like waves, like tidal waves. Hakshivi Laisha. What does it mean? Listen up, Laisha. Says the Gemara. The Navi said to them, Mehai loy tistafi. From this guy, do not be afraid. Ella istafi min Nebuchadnezzar harasha. The Navi says, if you want to be afraid of somebody, Nebuchadnezzar is a guy to be afraid of. Mistafi means to be afraid. Istafi. Rashi says, Mehai loy istafa. Shaminatzal miyada. You're going to be safe from his hands. Don't be afraid of him. Hainu d'chsiv tzahali koilach. This is the meaning of tzahali. Tzahali means like joy. Raise your voice in joy. Ella. However, istafi. If you want to talk about being nervous and afraid and anxious, Nebuchadnezzar. Shenimshal l'layish. Nebuchadnezzar is metaphorized as a layish. D'chsiv bei Allah. Allah, but it says about Nebuchadnezzar, Allah Aryeh Mesubchai. This is a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, in the 4th chapter of Yirmiyahu. Yirmiyahu says that the lion comes out of his thicket. So a lion has a lair, and his lair is in the thicket. And the lion comes out of his thicket. V'hainu dekamar. This is the meaning of Hakshivi Laisha. Listen, lion. Laisha is a word for lion. Listen, lion, meaning listen up. Be afraid of the lion-hearted king. The lion, he's a scary guy. But this other king, don't be afraid of. So the Gemara has a supposition that this is an incredible army, and in describing the movement of this army and the speed, we now appreciate what a miracle this was. And Rav Huna said 10 marches, 10 movements, massive movements in a day. And the Gemara says, no, we counted it up. It's actually 12. And the Gemara says 10. Because Bat Galim is not a place. It's not a place. That's Yeshayahu HaNavi speaking to the Jewish people. Hakshivi Layish is also not a place. It's not a place. Hakshivi Layish is, listen, lion. What he's saying is, don't be afraid of Sennacherib. Be afraid of Nebuchadnezzar. All right. What the heavens is, what's going on over here? The Funa says it's 10 places. The Gemara says, no, it's 12 places. He says, you thought that was a place. That wasn't a place. That was actually the prophet speaking to the people. You see the army? They're moving at such speed. You see what's going on? Listen, children of the patriarchs, listen, you Bat Galim. Tzahali! Raise your voice. Sing a song. Don't be afraid of this guy. Well, there'll be somebody else to be afraid of. In the future, there'll be what to be afraid of. Nothing to be afraid of here. Nothing to see here. Really? What does this mean? So the Gemara says, why do we say Nebuchadnezzar? Nebuchadnezzar, who is metaphorized as a lion. the motil ke'aryeh. He is depicted as a lion. Shenemar ala aryeh misuvche. So the Gemara says, okay, help me understand. I almost have this figured out. I hear what you're saying. So what is the meaning of my aniya anatot? What's the poor, woe is to anatot? What's that? Oh, so the Gemara says, that's to teach you that Atid Yirmiyahu ben Chilkiah, that the prophet Jeremiah, who is called Jeremiah, the son of Chilkiah, although that's a whole discussion whether he was actually the son of Chilkiah, but at least Chilkiah the Kohen Gadol, Umitnavei, and he is going to bring prophecy. Allah me Anatot, he comes up from Anatot, because we say in the Pasuk that Chilkiyahu was the Navi from the Kohanim of the city of Anatot. The Chasivas is written, and this was the beginning of the book of Yirmiyahu ben Chilkiyahu, min hakoyanim asher ba'anatot be'eretz binyamin. Rashi says, Aniya anatot kemo aniya. Kilomar, nevi'ut, it doesn't mean poor, it means raising a voice. And this is the prophecies of Yirmiyahu. Ha'anatoti. Yirmiyahu is from Anatot. He sha'atida lavo. That's what's going to be coming in the future. That prophecy about Nebuchadnezzar. Shetimsa Yerushalayim biyadai. That Yerushalayim will be given over to the hands of Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah, that's going to happen. That's correct. That's going to happen. But that's not now. That's in the distant future. Now, Sennacherib is coming. Nothing to be afraid of. Nothing to be afraid of. You see what this guy's doing? He's chewed up the whole of the north of Israel, displaced and exiled all of the 10 tribes. He's conquered entire Asia Minor and the whole Iberian Peninsula. Oh, that's nothing to be afraid of. He's marching on Yerushalayim. He comes to Yerushalayim, by the way, he laughs. This is a city, he says, I could eat this for lunch. This is nothing for me. And the prophet's telling them, start singing. Bring out your harps and lyres. Get the guitars fired up. We're going to be singing over here. So what's going on here? What is this? By the way, the Gemara is not even so quick to accept this. The Gemara says, well, I don't know about this because mi dummy. Could you compare the verses? The Gemara says, Hasam Ari. There it says, Ari Allah Ari misubchai. The lion came out of his thicket. Hasam it says layish. So the Gemara says that's not a question. Amar Rabbi Yechanan taught, Shisha Shemot Yesh LaAri. There's 6 names for a lion, besides Aryeh, by the way. And Elohein, Ari, Kfir, Lavi, Layish, Shachal, Shachatz. So the Gemara says, Iachi. If so, if now you're telling me that these are not names of places, now, Batzur Lahu. And we have too little, and we only have 9 places. The Gemara says no. Avru and Ma'avara Tartininu. Avru and Ma'avara are actually 2 separate places. And because they're 2 separate places, so like the Gemara says, Ihachi, the kul lekra tzali koilach loy mechush benahi. This whole pasuk that says, raise your voice, sing a song, is not part of the calculation of the geography. In Kain leka elatesha masot, then there's only 9 marches. And if Huna said there was 10 marches. So he says, no. The ha'od hayom lav mechush bena. As we said already, the od hayom today being at Nova, arriving at Nova, is not part of the calculation. Umetaretz. So the Gemara's answer is Avru and Ma'abara. It sounds like going through the pass, but actually Tarti Inun, it's 2 different places. They both sound very similar. Avru Chad, Ma'abara Chad. Avru is 1 place, Ma'abara is 1 place, and therefore V'ika Eser Masot. So we have in total 10 different locations. I'm learning this Gemara. My head's exploding. I don't get this. I must be missing something. I learned the Gemara a 2nd time. I learned a 3rd time. I learned a 4th time. I don't understand what's going on over there. Rav Huna makes a statement about how powerful this army is. Okay. The Gemara says, you said 10. Kwacha, it's 12. He says, no, that's not 12. That's not a location. That's Isaiah telling the people to sing. Oh, well, in that case, it's only 9. No, that's 10. It's 10. I said 10, it's 10. That's basically what the Gemara said. What's the message? So first I'm going to tell you a little bit of pshat in some of the details, and then I'm going to tell you what I think the Gemara is saying. So first of all, we hear that the Jewish people are called Bat Galim. Bat Galim, the daughter of waves, Bito Shel Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. So the Maharal of Prague, in his Chadusha Agodas, he says, Pirush, what is the meaning that the patriarchs are called waves? He says, Pirush, it means Shahaya mivurorim v'nikorim b'mitzvot, that they were very clear. They were like crystallized, separated, cleansed. You could see they were pure with mitzvahs. Kamay hagal, like a wave, shehu mevuror v'nikar. The wave is separated from the rest of the ocean. You can see the wave separately. It's like a silly story that they tell. And the story is about the idea of how we're powerful, more powerful when we're part of something bigger rather than being separate on our own. So what did the little wave say to the big wave? As they got closer to the seashore and they saw all the waves crashing on the seashore, little wave said to the big wave, little wave said, big wave, I'm really nervous because soon we crash into the seashore and we are no more. And big wave said to little wave, no, my little friend, soon we waves crash into the seashore and we become part of the great ocean. But the wave is separate. A wave is separate from the ocean. It's a wave. The wave is coming. A tidal wave. A wave. A wave is not part of it. You don't look at the wave as that's ocean, that's a wave. So the wave is separate. The Maharal says that there's a certain distinction. The wave is separate. It's different. Ha'avot hayom mesuyamim ba'olam. They were like a wave. They were like part of everything. And as much as they were a part of this world, not separated, they were apart. Part, but apart. As they say, it's apart and apart. Kichol psia upsia. Every step that the Avot took, hakol haya b'mitzvot Hashem. Everything was in the mitzvahs of Hashem. Ubeshgahach Hashem's supervision, so to speak, Hashem's providence. The Avos were not like regular people. Heim hayu yisod ha'olam. They're the foundation of the world. Therefore, kol davar mahem haya mitzvahs Hashem yizbarach aleim. Everything they did was a mitzvah from Hashem. And that's the meaning of they were identified, separated, different from others. You know, in the late 80s, my brother Yossi and I were going through my grandfather Olav Shalom's desk, my mother's father, Rabbi Hecht. I don't remember why. We were helping him clean up his office a little. And we found on the bottom of one of his drawers a little packet of little notebooks. You know, like those black and white covers, those packet of notebooks. And we opened it up, and it was like a diary of sorts. And we asked my Zaidi, what is this? He said, I don't know. He looks at it and says, this is my diaries that I wrote when I went to Europe right before World War II. Because my grandfather was one of 10 yeshiva students who left the United States in August of 1939 to go to learn Torah at the yeshiva of the previous Rebbe. And a whole story how my Zaidi got to go. He was a 17-year-old boy. And he wrote a diary. And then he had a whole story how he was saved. Unbelievable story that was saved. The first bombs of World War II, the first shots were fired were at the port in Gdansk. But the first bombs that fell from the sky were in the suburb of Atwak, or Atvatsk, where the previous Rebbe was. First bombs that fell. So there's, description of the ship across the sea, and they come to Paris, they docked at Paris, and where they stayed, and where they went. And then they took a train from Paris to Warsaw. So he wrote in his diary, and this was like amazing to me. It's 1939, American boy. My Zaidi's father was born in America. My Zaidi's grandfather came to America as a young man. And he writes, the Rebbe's son-in-law came to the train station and he gave us a mimer about his kashrus. That's what he wrote. He spoke to them about being connected, going to a Rebbe, traveling to a Rebbe. And he describes how our Rebbe looked to him. He said he has a small, wiry beard. He is wearing brown shoes and white gloves. Rebbe was a very classy dresser. And he writes, Rabbi Yisrael Jacobson told, he writes like this, I heard he's an agriculturalist of some sort, which was not accurate. He was an engineer. And he writes, Rabbi Yisrael Jacobson told us that he is a tzaddik yesoid olam, and he is miyached yechudim every step he takes. So this is what a boy, a 17-year-old boy, knew about our Rebbe when nobody knew who the Rebbe was. Rabbi Yisrael Jacobson, I don't even think you've met the Rebbe, knew that the previous Rebbe's son-in-law is a tzaddik yesoid olam, and he is miyached yechudim, which is Kabbalistic terminology for putting together spiritual worlds, doing mitzvahs, every step he takes. So, the Rebbe was a part of the regular world, but he was always a part. There's always something different about him. This is the Maharal says, this is why the Avos were called Galim. There was something different about them. It's different. There's other interpretations why waves, why they call waves, but this is a beautiful teaching from the Maharal of Prague. By the way, the 6 names of a lion, why do we have, what do the 6 names of a lion represent? Why is that even relevant or important? So there is actually a verse in Job that says, Shagas Aryeh, the roar of a lion, Koil Shachal, the voice of a lion, Shine Kfirim, the teeth of a lion. There's a bunch of different names. Layish Oived, Mibli Teref, the Layish is able to devour without tearing his prey. Ubnei Lavi Yispardu, the children of the Lavli, of the lion cub, so to speak, are able to dismember. And Shachatz is in a separate verse. It says that Hashem is Melech HaKol B'nei Shachatz. Hashem is king over all the lions. So there's Farshim talk about what exactly these names mean. Most of these names are different terms for the lion's ability to devour its prey and to strike fear into the heart of anybody who's going to come near it. What is the Gemara saying? What is going on over here? So this is what I think is going on here. Did the Jewish people with Chizkiyahu HaMelech deserve to be saved by Hashem? To some degree. We read and studied a couple of episodes ago how the study of Torah was just unbelievable in Chizkiyahu HaMelech's time. And we said that the oil, the lamps of oil that were burning, that's what devoured Chizkiyahu HaMelech. But what actually took them across the finish line? What brought about this miracle? Our sages tell us that the most powerful thing about Chizkiyahu HaMelech and the Jewish people at the time was their ability to trust in Hashem. The Navi said, Hashem is going to deliver the enemy. And the people had perfect bitachon. What does it mean to have bitachon? Bitachon, as Rabbeinu Bechaya says in the Shara Bitachon, means to be tranquil, to be relaxed. Place your reliance fully on Hashem. Chizkiyahu HaMelech went to sleep that night. Pure, perfect bitachon in Hashem. People who are not calm cannot sleep. If the writing's on the wall, massive army surrounds you, tomorrow it's over, who sleeps that night? Who is able to sleep that night? Chizkiyahu slept. The Jewish people with him, they slept. They had perfect trust in Hashem. Yeshayahu HaNavi challenges the people. He says, Bas Galim, you are the children of the Avos. What was so distinct about the Avos? So I started to think, where do we see a description of the Avos where Hashem speaks about the Avot? In Parshas Va'era, we hear Hashem's response to Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, Lama hara esa lama zeh. Why is all these terrible things happening? He questions. And Hashem says, Hashem speaks to Moshe. Va'era al Avram, al Yitzchak, al Yaakov. I show myself to Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. And they didn't know the Shem Havaya. Shmi Yud Kevav Ke Lo Nadaiti. And Rashi tells them, Hivtachtim Havtachot. I made promises. I made them guarantees. They never questioned. They didn't question. And you're questioning. As Rashi says, Chaval da'avdin v'loi mishtakhin. He says, woe is to those who are gone, but not forgotten. Why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu is questioning, but the Avos didn't question. Avos didn't. They accepted what Hashem said. The Maharal of Prague says, Iker hane'emonut shehu mekayim es devarav ma shediber la'avot rishonim b'yemei hakadmonim hu mekayim livnei machareim. What Hashem promised the ancestors, that's what He fulfills. In other words, when we hear a promise from a prophet today, it's ultimately the fulfillment of what Hashem told Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And of course, the Exodus and everything since is what Hashem told Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov embodied perfect bitachon in Hashem. Perfect trust in Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu, the Medrash tells us, was very, very concerned when he saw that Datan and Aviram knew what had happened with the Mitzri, when he eliminated that terrible Mitzri. And the Medrash says, because Moshe Rabbeinu was worried, that's why the problems happened. Had he been calm, had he had bitachon, he wouldn't have had a problem. Now, that's not for us, not chas v'shalom disparaging Moshe Rabbeinu, and as the Rebbe once explained in the Sikha, that Moshe Rabbeinu's avodah is with moichin, with mind, with seichel. The avot served Hashem with heart, with midot. But the reality is that the embodiment of bitachon, of trust in Hashem, is Avraham. Avraham Avinu is the embodiment of bitachon. Never questions. Hashem says, go to Eretz Yisrael. He goes to Israel, and when he goes to Israel, there's a famine and economic collapse. Say, God, I did what you wanted, and now they're blaming me. They didn't question. Goes into Mitzrayim. They abduct his wife. They didn't question. What happened in the end? Everything worked out fantastic. In the end, Sarah is returned to Avraham. She isn't bothered, and Avraham is extremely wealthy. And story after story, test after test, Avraham Avinu doesn't waver. He never wavers. The Avot didn't waver. They followed what Hashem said. They had perfect bitachon. I'm convinced that the story of the Gemara is this. The Gemara is emphasizing, Rav Huna told us specifically 10. 10, not 12. But there's names of places. That's exactly Rav Huna's point. What was the challenge that Yeshayahu HaNavi put before the Jewish people? He reminded them, where do you come from? You are Bas Galim. You're the daughter of Galim. The Galim, the waves, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, you're the daughter. You are from them. What was their huge achievement? They were always trusting in Hashem. Tzahali, sing. Sing? Rabbi, did you see what's going on out there? This massive army. And they said, tomorrow we're getting destroyed. You sing to Hashem. A person cannot sing if he's filled with anxiety. Like the Gemara says, Ein Adam shar shira ela mitech simcha. You sing when you're happy. Especially happy songs. Tzali, raise your voice up, sing. Yeshayahu HaNavi said, show me that you're perfectly calm. Trust perfectly. This time there's nothing to worry. There's going to be what to worry about. He says, you know the prophecies, yes, in the future, Yirmiyahu is going to say the Beis HaMikdash should be destroyed. True. It's going to happen. There's going to be a lion. not this lion. There's a lion. Nebuchadnezzar is there. By the way, our sages tell us that the 10 locations, the 10 marches, are symbolic of the 10 tribes. 10, not 12. They conquered 10 tribes. They're not going to conquer 12 tribes. They're not going to conquer 12 tribes. And Nebuchadnezzar, he was one of the survivors, one of the 10 survivors. And it's true. The Beis HaMikdash is going to be destroyed. And the Nevi'im are going to give scathing prophecies to the Jewish people, and they're going to tell them because of your Averos. But you, generation of Chizkiyahu, you have earned Hashem's bracha. Do not waver. Your challenge now, your Nisayon, is to show perfect betachon. If you can show perfect betachon, and you can sing to Hashem in the face of what seems to be imminent doom and gloom, then you have earned Hashem's miracles. So the message of this Gemara, unless I'm totally off mark, the message of this Gemara is that the way that we, the Jewish people, can earn Hashem's brachas and miracles, not by living sinful lives, chas v'shalom, say, I trust in Hashem. That obviously doesn't work. And we talked about that in many of the shiurim in Shara B'tachon. That's ridiculous. Can't be wicked and trust in Hashem. But Chizkiyahu's people were righteous. You're righteous, you trust in Hashem, you place your trust in Hashem, and as we learned in the previous episode, they got parnasa. Where did it come from? Miraculously. They did the bare minimum and didn't think about it twice. This story emphasizes the power of betachon. And you know that because Rav Huna says 10. But we look at it, it's 12. No, then look again. The Gemara analyzes it. It's 10 because those verses, those words, are Isaiah's marching orders. So it was, my friends, and so Emir Hashem, it will be. As long as we have the strongest of betachon in the Rebbeinu Shleilim, we have to do our mitzvahs, we have to study our Torah, and we have to create a renewal of Yiddishkeit, a renaissance of devotion to Hashem. But if we do that, we must never have any kind of anxiety whatsoever. Place our trust, our betachon in Hashem Yisbarach, and as long as we place our betachon in Hashem, miracles will Emir Hashem happen for Am Yisrael, and hopefully we will merit b'mheira ubi yameinu, speedily and in our time, the greatest miracle of all, the coming of Mashiach and the transformation of our world into a place of goodliness and godliness. B'mheira ubi yameinu, amen. Thank you so much for joining. Have a beautiful night.